Hi guys. So you might notice we have a bit of a different background again today. I'm actually on my way to Spain for a week or two, and I haven't yet decided if I'm going to be bringing a laptop. So I wanted to update some of these case studies before I left. I don't have access to my usual office or my co-working place, so we're using this is a bit of a temporary setup. But we do have the whiteboard and the marketing books, which means we're kind of doing like an old school SEO video vibe here. All we're really missing is the Lamborghini in the garage, and I don't have one, so we're just going to skip that part. I did want to update the AI content SEO case study though, because I think it's one of the more interesting ones we've been working on. I post these case studies in a couple of different places. I post them here on YouTube, first of all. Then they go to my website, they go to SEO forums, they go to SEO subreddits, and we got some pretty interesting discussion. So first of all, you got the people who are interested in how the sites do. That's what we're going to look at today. And the types of technologies and services we're using to build up these sites. So the original plan was to take a chunk of these services and kind of test them against each other. We want to see which ones produce content the fastest, which ones take the least effort, which ones writers can work with. Basically, we want the best tool for producing good content on scale. So we have things like, we have Jarvis, which has renamed to, I think it's Jasper, because Disney threatened to sue them. We have Quillbot, which is a rewriter. It works a little bit differently, and I'll do a video at some point about how we're using that. We have, I think it's called writer.me, and that's Ryter. No affiliation, but if you do want to try this out for yourself, I think they have a free, at least last I checked, they have a free account. They do have an affiliate link, but I'm not going to bother doing it, I'll be honest. But if you Google it, you'll find them. So that's Ryter, and they do a similar service. Basically, they're all kind of the same thing. There's new AI content services every week. And at some point, we're going to kind of do a close comparison to see which one is better. But realistically, it doesn't really matter, because the end result, we're not trying to mass produce automatic websites. There are people who do that. I'm not saying it isn't currently working. It's just not part of my current strategy. I don't believe that AI content is currently at the state where it produces good content. It goes off on weird tangents. It insults the reader. I think I mentioned in the first video for this case study, I've seen AI content threaten to kidnap the reader's family or something ridiculous. So we're not letting the AI do its own thing. We are simply using these tools to help a skilled writer produce content faster. The idea being, if you can produce a content in 10 to 20 minutes rather than several hours, you can produce a whole lot more of it. So we had people interested in the tools we're using, in how the sites were going to perform. We did have a lot of pushback, and I understand it. As someone whose main bread and butter is content, the idea of Skynet coming along and replacing our jobs is a bit scary. We're not there yet. I'm not at all saying that we are, but we had a lot of people saying things like AI content produces garbage, or produces plagiarized content, or that search engines detect it. Depending on how you use it, I don't have an issue with any of these. I have no issue with Google trying to detect automatic websites, because most of the content we're getting from AI just now, you wouldn't want to read by itself. There are public tools out there that detect content from like GPT-2. I ran a lot of our content through it, and it doesn't even approach being flagged as AI, because we are not letting the AI just do whatever it wants. We give it very, very strict guidelines. We give it very, very strict editing, and we keep it on rails. The strategy on how you do that, that's going to differ for every SEO. It also differs for every single website. So the way we structure a website dictates the kind of framework we use for the AI. At some point, I can talk about how I kind of show writers to use this stuff, but we're not going to get into that today. So the original plan for this case study was to take a new website every week, maybe 2 weeks, and just pump out the content and see how they do. And that's what we did with site 1 here. Now, I think this site has now been up about a month or so. I'm not good with time frame, guys. I'll be honest, I don't really have a great sense of time. We currently have 171,756 published words. That is not a small website. Now, all of this content has been manually edited. AI has helped speed things up. It has helped vastly speed things up, but all of that content has had a human who knows the content somewhat, who knows the niche, go through it, fix it up, and steer the AI as it goes. We use a site called Toggle to kind of track times for some projects. This YouTube channel you're watching just now, for example, if I'm allowed just to sit and talk, I will sit and talk about content marketing for hours. So we use sites like this to track and make sure that I'm not spending time on some things that don't make a return. I use the same thing for freelancers or anyone I kind of work with. You really want to focus on the things that move the needle. So here we use Toggle to track how long it takes to do an article, how long it takes to edit the article and produce it with AI. We have an article here that was produced in 7 minutes, one here that was produced in 9 minutes, and this was 6 articles produced in 55 minutes. Now, I will be honest, once we started to see some traction with this website, we did chase some more competitive keywords, and for that content, we did spend more time. We wanted a higher word count, we wanted to cover more of the subtopics, and we wanted to make sure, just double check the content was as good as we can get it. So we did spend about 20 to 25 minutes on some of the articles later on, but overall this was the quickest I've ever seen that many articles produced on a site by far. The results kind of speak for themselves as well. Now, if you're watching this, you're probably not a stranger to SEO case studies. You probably do SEO case studies yourself, or at least SEO sites. This was a brand new domain. I think I bought it a couple of weeks or a month or something too, but I bought it at some point. It sat empty. It was a project I was going to get to and never got around to it. So it sat empty for ages and did nothing. And almost the moment we started to publish this much content on it, we saw it grow. I think that was the growth we saw when I first did the first video for this case study and started to talk about that. And since then, it has gone parabolic. This is Ahrefs charts. The numbers are never accurate, but the trend is dead on. I think that site is doing something like 30 to 40 visitors a day by now, mostly US, and for a brand new domain, that's obscene. Now, couple of huge disclaimers here. That is not happening because the content is written by AI. AI does not, and I repeat, not, despite what some sales pages will tell you, it does not write content that search engines are going to love. It just doesn't. It just so happens that we managed to drill down into a pretty sub niche, and that's underserved. There's no one really targeting these keywords because if you were spending 2-3 hours in the articles, they're probably just not worth targeting. Because we were able to pump out so much content so quickly by using the AI tools, we were able to chase these long tails, and we rank pretty quickly because of that. Now, I once heard someone say, I think it was somebody from Income School, they compared videos or written content to having a hook in the ocean when fishing. And I like that analogy. So the more content you have out there, whether it's a video or an article or a website or whatever, you have more opportunities to be found. So I don't know exactly how many articles that is, but let's say it's 1,000 words an article. We have 171 articles. That's a lot of opportunities to be found, especially for a new website. That's a lot of opportunities to be found in the search results. Part of that is also, to be clear, the traffic we do get, they are human. They are actually clicking on affiliate links. They are engaging with the content. The bounce rate's looking pretty good. The time on site's looking pretty good. In general, I'm really happy with this, how this site is going. But it's there because we're able to chase all these long terms. I think our highest page, I've actually got the top organic keywords here, and you'll see, let's just highlight them so you can see them. Position 18, 12, 20, 20, 20. So these are not big keywords, and even these aren't the keywords we're ranking for so far. We're ranking for super specific long tails, but because we have so many of them, we're picking up traffic. Now, again, a couple of dozen views a day is not going to buy anyone an early retirement, but for a brand new domain, it's not common. It's not how you normally see a site go. Most of the projects I started in the last 6 months don't have that kind of traffic yet, and that's perfectly expected. So I don't think we'll get this for every single site. I think we've just maybe lucked out onto this one. But barring a major change in the algorithm, I do think that'll become a good cash flowing site within the next couple of months. I've got, so there's 171,000 words published. We actually do have more. So when I start a new site, I like to do anywhere from maybe 50 to 100 articles to start with. This site, because it did so well in the early stages here, I decided to push that even further. And once we have the initial articles done, I like to keep some activity on the site. So it really depends on the niche, how frequently we publish. But I like to have an article every week, fortnight, month, whatever it is. In this case, we're going to go for at least an article a week because they're dead easy to edit and produce. And that just says to Google that we're keeping the site updated, that we're not kind of falling behind, and we're still interested in. This is a good quality site that stays up to date. So I'm really happy with how that site turned out. The content quality is great, and yeah, happy with it. Site number 2, you'll see we don't have a chart here. We have a sleepy dwarf. So site number 2, there was a high traffic domain with a low domain authority that I stumbled across a few weeks ago. And they are either using AI or a very cheap writer to produce their content. I took one look at it and thought, we can compete with that. Even if we don't do any backlinks at all, they don't have links, and we can produce better quality. I think they had, I can't remember. I think they might have had a couple of 100 articles, maybe 200 or something. But one look at it, I was like, we can use AI to absolutely compete with that. But I haven't done it yet. We've started the domain, we posted a few articles to get things started, but it wasn't because I was being lazy. It wasn't entirely because I was being lazy. I actually had a thought. If you speak to anyone who does niche websites on scale and who does niche websites profitably, a lot of them tell you to focus on existing sites. Now, I'm not good at that myself because I suck at having an attention span on one thing. But the advice makes sense. If you spend $5,000 on getting content and links for a brand new domain, it's probably at least a year before you start seeing any return on that, potentially longer. If you put that into an existing site, a site that has authority, that has already trust in that topic, that has traffic and viewers and all that, it's going to rank faster. And that's almost a universal truth. An existing domain is going to rank content faster, which means you're going to get a return on your investment, whether that's time or money, a lot faster. So this is site number 3 for the case study. Can you guys see this? Am I in your way? Yeah, you can see. So site number 3 is an existing site. It is, I think, about 2 years old, and it is a positive cash flow. It's somewhat of a boring site. I've had a couple of writers work on it over the years. We had 200 and a little, we had 200, I can't write today. Basically 212,000 published words there. And that was a bit of a mix. So you can kind of see the growth chart down here. Let's get the black pen. So over here, the site was kind of new. It had a wee bit of established authority. It has a handful of links, and we were just kind of publishing content slowly here and there. You'll see there's a kind of plateau here and here. That's when things weren't really getting added. We got some growth here, and here. And again, if you've done SEO, you will see this pattern time and time again. If you publish content around this area, you wait a little bit and you'll see the growth from that content later on. That is your new content ranking. It's also potentially Google saying that you're talking about that topic, so you're probably trusted to talk about that topic. So if I publish 50 articles on AI content generation, I'm probably going to rank better for those keywords than if I just post one. So we had periods where we'd post stuff and see the content grow later on. From that 212,000, that site has affiliate links, it has display ads, it has a pretty consistent cash flow every day. Not a massively exciting one, but it churns along. And if you have seen the first video for this case study, one of the first things I did when I tested AI tools to help speed up content generation, I took one of my bigger sites and we put together an article using one of these tools. Again, not because it happened to be AI and it writes especially good content for search engines. It just so happened that the keyword we targeted was underreported on the keyword tools, and it is one of the bigger pages on that site now. Generates sales all the time. So I knew it would work on existing sites. What I wanted to see was how it would work on scale on existing sites. So over the last couple of weeks, we've gone from 212,000 to 256,000. And again, we have more content on that site. I want to say there's maybe another 10 or 15,000 words that have been scheduled out and just haven't been published yet. We're probably going to keep pushing that even higher. I'd like to get to at least 300,000, maybe even 400,000. And that started to get posted probably around here. So it's a pretty flat growth at the moment. It is an existing site. So again, unless Google's algorithm has an upset and decides to take an issue with the site, I do expect that we'll see the chart go like this. And if we go to 400,000, it'll probably look more like that. It's not the most exciting niche in the world. It makes a little bit of money, it churns along, but I do like projects when they become self-sufficient. So if you have a cash flowing project that's making $1,000 a month, you can afford to put $1,000 a month into content, and you're not having to invest anything. And any project that can kind of sustain its own growth like that just becomes kind of exponential, becomes far more interesting. So I want to push that content a little bit higher, and I want to try and get work on getting the AI content more outsourced. See if I can find people who can do this on an hourly basis to produce good content for cheaper than I'd normally pay, because it takes less effort than writing it from scratch. And that also brings us to site number 4. I don't actually have the traffic chart for this one. I wasn't massively prepared, but it looks a little bit like site number 3. It is maybe 2 years old. If you've done an SEO site yourself, or if you've seen someone else's case study, you might have heard the term hockey stick growth. So it kind of trundles along this for a while, and then all of a sudden, bang, it's just exponential growth day after day. That has recently happened in that site over the last maybe couple of weeks. We had a writer produce these 80,000 words a while ago, someone who actually knew the topic and knew what they were talking about. And the site has kind of ran along, and it picks up sales kind of now and then, and it's been okay, but it's just not been a topic I've been interested in doing any more with. It's not a project I've had the time to deal with. So when I noticed the sales pick up quite quickly, I had a wee look at the traffic, and oh, okay. So we have 80,000 words on that site. And compared to site number 3's 212,000, this site probably makes more in revenue. It's also a big evergreen niche. There are a lot of low competition, long tail keywords we can go after. And as I did find out, the AI is perfectly capable of talking about this topic. Again, like everything, it needs guidance. You can't just let it go off and do its own thing. It will get weird. But my plan is to do site number 3 and 4 the same way, produce a crap lot of content. That is the technical marketing term, by the way, a crap lot of content. If you look at the Google guidelines, that's exactly what they ask for. And my goal is to get, I should push at least 100,000 by the end of this week. Ideally, I'd like to get that site to closer to 200,000. And I do think we'll see quicker growth on site number 3 and 4 than we'll see on the other two, just because they are established, because they have links and authority and trust and all that jazz. So that's basically it. Site number 1 doing really, really well. For a brand new site, I don't think I could have expected anything better than this. That's going to be a positive cash flow relatively soon for an SEO project. Site number 2 we will get to. It's just not an interesting niche, and I really wanted to try this with established domains as well. Site number 3 and 4, they are established, they are cash flowing, and they could really use some extra content. So I think they'll fit quite well into this case study. Again, don't let AI write all your content. It will do a really bad job. There are a whole bunch of tools out there. There are more coming out every single day. Don't believe the sales hype that will tell you it'll write it all for free and you won't have to work. It doesn't work like that, sadly, but it is a tool worth looking at. Even if you're not directly using it yourself. We did have a whole bunch of a whole bunch of comments for the first video. I think we had them on Reddit. People who don't like AI content and don't think it should be part of your strategy. I do understand it. I respect that. Quality first, absolutely. However, if you are outsourcing your content, especially if you're on the lower end of the market, I can almost guarantee you're getting AI content. There are Facebook groups for freelance writers where people post screenshots of their Jarvis.ai generation numbers, and this is content that they are selling. Agency writers will be the exact same. I actually weirdly enough, I bumped into a freelance writer yesterday, and we got chatting a bit, and the moment I said AI, they're like, yep, use AI. It's going to be so common, especially in a market where you're paying per words. That writer is incentivized to write more words in less time, and they're going to be using AI to do it. Unless you're physically looking over their shoulder, you should at least be aware of these tools. So my plan, rather than watching writers' screens and making sure they're not doing it, if this type of tool or service can help a writer produce better content faster, then it's a win-win. I can get more content for the same price or the same content for less, and they don't have to write long, drawn-out, rambling articles that nobody wants to read. So I personally don't see a problem with it as long as it is under human editing and moderation. So that's a case study. Thank you for watching if you made it this far. If you have any questions, comment section below. If you want to see how these sites do, hit the subscribe button. If you find me outside of YouTube, if it's a forum or subreddit, whatever, I'll post the updates to that as well. Keep in mind, this is an SEO case study, so it's going to be a while before we get meaningful results. It just is. It's the nature of the beast. Because we're able to post more content than I would say most websites get, we'll probably see results faster. Site number 1 is a good example of that. And because we're using some established domains here with a lot of content, we'll probably see some results over the next month or two. But yeah, I'll update when there's something to update with. Enjoy.